Welcome back to the show. You guys, I am super excited about my guest today, and we are going to deep dive all into keto and this is why I love having like minds, right? So our mutual friend, Dr. Amy Horniman, had told me I needed to connect with Ben today, and I'm super excited. She, in all honesty, Ben, this is what she said. She's like, he thinks like us. So like, you need to talk to him.
I'm grateful to hear that.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Ben Azadi, correct?
That's right. You nailed it, Lisa. Thanks for
Yes.
having me. Grateful that Amy connected us. Thanks for having me.
So let's share with everybody like your story. I want to hear all of this, how you got into doing keto camp, like all of this stuff, because you've really got the science, and especially you were a vegan. So I kind of like the fact of that. I at one point was a vegetarian, and then so it's funny because I even do a lot of carnivore stints now. So people are like, really?
Yeah, complete opposite. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So let's share with all of us your story.
So I went through a weight loss transformation in 2008. I lost 80 pounds, went from being obese, physically obese, mentally obese, to getting really fit and working on what I call the mental six pack. That's what got me started in the health space. I became a personal trainer. I actually opened up a CrossFit gym and ended up selling the CrossFit gym. But I was still one of those fit, sick people, which are so many out there. Being skinny or being fit does not mean you're healthy. And that was the same situation. I had a lot of health issues. And then I became a vegan, to what you said. I read the China study. I didn't know how to read studies, and it duped me. I was really dogmatic about it. And you know what? In the beginning, that change to veganism was great. I got benefits from it, but then I stuck with it too long. A year and a half, I stuck with it. And my health suffered, my energy suffered. And I realized, okay, I need to make a change. Lab work verified that I was, how I was feeling. And then I started to just do more research. Jimmy Moore, who had a book back then called Keto Clarity. I got into some of Dr. Pompa's work, Dave Asprey's work, Mercola's work. And I started to learn about this process of ketosis, ancient healing strategy called ketosis and intermittent fasting. And it really excited me and made a lot of sense that all of our ancestors did keto, they did fasting, nothing new about it, just nuanced. So I transitioned from being a vegan to doing the ketogenic diet. And I started to benefit from it and felt a lot better. Hormones improved, energy levels improved. That was in 2014. And ever since then, I've learned a lot about it. I've applied it to thousands and thousands of people, made a lot of mistakes with it. And that brings me to my company, Keto Camp. We're on a mission to get the word out on these ancient healing strategies. And we teach it in a way that's not dogmatic. It's very practical. We give you the science, but then we give you bite-sized nuggets. So that is my story with how I discovered keto.
I love it. And just how you keep saying the ancestral, like this is literally what it is. This is how our ancestors ate. Right. And so, and I do have to chuckle because those CrossFit days, right? Like, so I used to be at one of the first 5 affiliates of CrossFit, right? And so I was just thinking that like these guys could all lift, right? Like everybody did a lot. And then I would just see what they would eat. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah. They're very inflamed. A lot of these CrossFit athletes,
yes.
No disrespect to them.
No. They're amazing athletes.
You hear about these CrossFit athletes that get COVID and they get, really sick because they're really inflamed. They're in this hyper sympathetic state and they're, exercising extraneously and they're not eating healthy, to your point. So just because they look really healthy on the outside doesn't mean on the inside it's the same situation.
Absolutely. It's what's happening on the inside, right? Like I've always said, again, we can be super skinny, but it doesn't mean that we're healthy. So reality is. All right. So let's just deep dive in. Everybody here, they understand that keto was the way that our ancestors ate. We're in and out of ketosis. Everybody, like we really focus in on carb cycling, especially. I was that woman that did intermittent fasting, like the 1 meal a day for way too long. And you know exactly what happened, but it was early on, right? It was like that 2015 time period where Asprey and everybody was talking about it, but they were always saying men and women, we can all do it the same. Well, not really. I learned really the hard way. So where do you want to go with this? We can go anywhere that we want on this conversation. Let's share like some of the biggest mistakes that you see with keto with people and how we can help focus the rudder, get them back on track.
Yeah, it's a great question because there's not one way to do keto. There's literally thousands of ways to do it. And if somebody goes on Dr. Google and types in what is the keto diet, they'll get millions of results. And I would estimate that like 80% plus of people who teach keto don't teach it from viewing the body as this magnificent machine that has a self-healing capabilities, this innate intelligence. They don't focus on cellular health. Me and you, Lisa, and our group, we focus on cellular health. So one of the biggest mistakes is eating the wrong keto foods, right? These inflammatory fats that are worse than sugar, and some experts say even worse than cigarettes. I interviewed Dr. Kate Shanahan, who used to be the nutritionist for the Los Angeles Lakers, and she wrote Deep Nutrition, Fat Burn Fix. She's brilliant. I interviewed her on my Keto Camp podcast. I interviewed another researcher, MIT researcher, Brian Peskin. I asked them the same question. I said, hey, do you think these fats, and I'm going to give a list of the fats soon, but I said, do you think these fats are worse than smoking cigarettes? Like, which one would lead to disease faster, cigarettes or these bad fats? And Peskin, very analytical mind, he was like, let's look at the research. And he said, if somebody smoked 2 packs of cigarettes every single day for 28 years, the chances of them developing lung cancer within those 28 years is about 16%, 1/6. Then he said, if they ate these inflammatory fats every single day for 28 years, the chances of them getting cancer or heart disease is 86%.
Holy smokes.
Isn't that nuts, Lisa? So I wanted to know if that research lined up with Dr. Kay Shanahan. So I shared what I just shared with you with her. And she said, actually, Ben, it's closer to 100% disease with these bad fats, not 86%. And here's the reason. They're polyunsaturated fatty acids. Poly means many. These fats, the chemical structure has many of these double bonds. The more double bonds, the more opportunities it has to attract oxygen and then oxidate, meaning inflame, like biting into an apple and letting it sit on the counter. And when you eat these fats, it will inflame your cells. It will stay in your cells and membranes for months to even years. And they're all keto friendly. They're all, in these keto foods, but they're not health friendly. So they are these vegetable oils, industrial seed oils, canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, rice bran oil, and grapeseed oil. Those are the hateful 8 that Dr. Kate Shanahan calls them. So what we want to do is eat more stable fats, saturated fats, and monounsaturated fats. The bad word, saturated fats, right? Well, if you think about the cell membrane, it's made up of protein, saturated fat, and cholesterol. If that's in our body, how could it be bad for us? So the healthier options are going to be butter, ghee, avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, beef tallow. We want these stable fats. So that right there is a big mistake people make on keto.
And I one of the things that just made me think of it with the cell membranes, like I know looking at it holistically wise, and people like just automatically always sunburn, right? And like that's classic, way too many of those vegetable seed oils in their diet, like classic. Correct. The other thought, you think of how many of those that you just named off are literally genetically modified. Yep. So now we're looking at a whole nother scary set of analysis too, right? Like of the possibilities.
Yeah. And they're in those Beyond Burgers. They're full of them.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Like the ones is that the one, like the vegan meat that bleeds or something that makes it look
I don't know if it bleeds, which I don't know why they want that, but it's
I know, because I remember seeing that and I was like, I don't think that's going to be attractive to vegans, but maybe.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to get away from that. But yeah, it's one of those plant-based burgers that's one of the most popular ones. But if you look at the ingredients, canola oil, soybean oil, it's a whole list of ingredients. But if you look at the ingredients in beef, it's just beef. It's like, okay, you know what it is.
Right. I'm assuming you also didn't name a lot of like the big fat dairy, right? Because that's the one thing that I don't like when people do a lot of keto and it's huge focus on dairy. Because I'm like, oh, if they're struggling with weight loss at that point, I'm like, kick that out.
True. Yeah. In my first pillar in my Keto Flex book, I actually say remove all dairy, at least for those 30 days to get that anti-inflammatory benefit. And what we're talking about is cow dairy. Now I say you could have sheep dairy, goat dairy, that's much safer. But to your point, it's estimated like 75% of adults can't process dairy. And a lot of people are overdoing it on keto with dairy. So that's another great nugget you shared.
Yeah. Or how about this? I see, I'll see menopausal women that are like, oh, like my hormones are all so different now. It's from keto, eating keto. It's helped my hormones. And I'm like, you're 70 years old. Like that shouldn't be happening. Right. And I was like, let's cut the dairy or let's kind of switch to organic at that point because they're getting so much estrogen again. And I was like, oh, this isn't cool. But it's funny how I literally have had women come to me saying this, like, oh, it's been so great. Like, and I'm like, oh, time out. Like certain things are supposed to happen in our life. So
That's
anyways,
correct.
let's see what are some other little tidbits that we can give people that if they're kind of, again, if they're struggling with keto, or other your pillars that you tell people, or the mistakes that you see people making. How about that?
Yeah. So the four pillars are: adapt is number one. So getting fat adapted, teaching your body to burn fat instead of sugar, getting you into ketosis safely. And once we do that, then we pair that with intermittent fasting. So another mistake, which I'll relate to the fasting pillar, is yeah, you're doing keto, but you're still snacking throughout the whole day. You're still eating your whatever 10 to 20 meals a day of snacks. And you're into this constant fed state and constantly raising insulin, even if it's, keto friendly. We want to break away from that. And you could start by simply having 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then maybe taking away the breakfast or taking away the dinner, practicing intermittent fasting. You don't do that every day. You don't do too much fasting. I know you shared that with me, but you actually balance out the feasting with the fasting. But the main thing is to avoid the excessive snacking. That's not healthy for anybody.
No, it's that whole blood sugar roller coaster at that point,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And then we also, and I know you know this too, just you think of Alzheimer's being called the type 3 diabetes. Like there's so much when people don't even understand the ramifications of what sugar is doing on their body. I mean, like literally. All right. What are some of the other mistakes that they make?
Not supporting the liver is a big mistake, especially in the beginning as you're increasing your healthy fats. Hopefully it's the healthy fats you increase. You want to break it down. How do you break it down? The liver produces bile, that green substance that will break down the fat. A lot of people, when they do keto and they have a sluggish liver, like so many of us do, they produce thick bile, and then they start increasing their fats and they can't break down the fat. So they get digestive issues. They just feel awful. And they say that I tried keto. It didn't work for me.
Didn't work. Right.
Yeah. But the truth is it's because your liver was just sluggish. So how do you support the liver? Bitter for the liver is what I always say. So liquid gold is what bile is. Essentially, it helps with so many factors and functions, helps with detoxification, helps to break down fat. The liver also helps with the lymphatic system. I think, I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think close to 50% of lymphatic drainage happens with the liver. So how we want more bitters: arugula, dandelion greens, oregano, milk thistle, ginger, radishes, radicchio, artichokes. Just increase those bitters every single day as you start keto, which will thin the bile. You break down the fat, you assimilate the nutrients, and then you feel really good on keto.
I love it. Yes, because again, how many people walk in and say, I tried that once, wasn't for me.
Always. So many
all
times.
the time on everything, right? I tried chiropractic once, wasn't for me. I'm like, really? You go to the dentist once too? It didn't work for you? Like, come on. So, all right. Any other mistakes?
Yeah, also, forgetting the fundamentals of health. Keto is great, fasting is great, exercise is great, but they're not even the fundamentals. The fundamentals of health is actually sleep, movement, and your stress masterment, I call it, not management. So you have to really exercise before you exercise. If you don't sleep well, if your sleep is not quality sleep, it doesn't matter how much keto and fasting you do, you're not going to be able to heal your body. So make sure you're looking at the fundamentals. That's optimal. You're getting your deep sleep, your REM sleep, you're tracking your sleep, which is a good idea. And then you're mastering your stress. You're turning off the news and you're opening up a book, and you're, controlling your environment, and you don't have a toxic environment. You have supportive people. That goes a long way. And a lot of people, they neglect that because sleep is not sexy. Cutting people out of your life is not easy to do. And movement, exercise is great, but what about getting in your steps? What about walking after a meal? These are things that go a long way. And then the last part is your thoughts. You become what you think about most of the time. And the average person is thinking 60,000 thoughts every single day. That is what they estimate. And 90% of those thoughts are typically the same thoughts from yesterday, and they're negative, stinking, thinking thoughts. And if your thinking is stinking, your dreams are shrinking.
Oh, I love it.
So get really good at choosing a better thought. Our greatest power as a human being is to go from a negative thought to choosing a positive thought. As you get better at that, you start feeding the part of your brain called the reticular activation system. And then all of a sudden you see more things to appreciate, because what you appreciate appreciates. A lot of people are dwelling on what's not working, and they'll get more of what is not going to work for them. But when you start changing your thoughts, you'll get more things to work for you instead of against you.
I love it. It's so true. And it's one of those, being outside of Detroit, I've always told people, I'm like, turn off the news.
Yeah,
Just turn
please.
off the news. And especially over the course of the last 2 years, like you can tell the people that have the news on 24/7 because they're in that constant state of fear. And then that's not doing anything for our immune system.
Mm-mm.
And, you just look at the world that we have lived in for the last couple of years is just totally upside down on anything for health, right? And something you just said made me think of like the fact on with the sleep. I had a patient just tell me today that she found a study that literally they found that the effects on why COVID is affecting certain people is based on the circadian rhythms. So there is a doctor that's keeping people up, not allowing them to sleep. And then he was having a higher survival rate. And I was like, I am going to have to look into this one because
That's
that makes no
interesting.
sense to me.
Yeah.
Because then the other ones that I've heard, obviously you've probably seen this too, is when um, huge adrenal stress people or adrenal fatigue people are the ones that are really struggling with it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but who's to say what at this point? Like,
Yeah. Well, if you think about what stress does to the immune system, I mean, I interviewed Dr. Bruce Lipton on my podcast because,
he was one of my instructors.
oh, really? He's such an amazing man, isn't
Amazing.
he?
Mhm.
Yeah. So he was speaking about how they use stress therapeutically to wipe out the immune system. And he gave the example of kidney transplant patients that go through the procedure of getting a new kidney. And the surgeon that's about to perform the surgery, what do they do before the surgery? They inject the patient with stress hormones because it wipes out their immune system so it could accept the foreign
Oh my,
object. So if you're watching the news all the time, you have this adrenal dominance, you are wiping out your immune system and being susceptible and making it a very lovely environment for viruses and bacteria to come inside.
that is, I did not know that on transplants. Probably I should have known that, but holy smokes, it makes sense as to why they do that.
Yep.
But it is, and you think of like being inside, people are afraid to walk outside, then we're not making any vitamin D. We also know, like, I mean, there are so many things that we're learning a year and a half, 2 years later, like, oh, okay. But the stuff that we need to do just to support ourselves and to make sure that, we always think like, hey, we can burn the candle at both ends and still, thrive. Well, not really. We're gonna it's not going to be pretty. So
No.
let's talk about keto camp. Let's talk about your all good stuff. Like what other fun things do you have going on?
Well, the main thing is getting the book to as many people as possible, right? Keto Flex is the book. It's available at ketoflexbook.com.
Love it.
Dr. Pompa, who I know you know, wrote the
Yes.
foreword. And I have an amazing endorsements from Dr. Fung, Dr. Bickman, Dr. Mindy Pels, Thomas DeLauer, and several others have
Awesome.
endorsed the book. So I want to get the book out to more people. Keto Camp, our mission is to educate and to inspire 1 billion people. So we're doing that with amazing conversations like this on your podcast, Lisa. We have our YouTube channel with 130,000 subscribers. The main goal is to teach people 3 steps to healing their body. And you're going to appreciate this as a chiropractor because I absolutely love the chiropractic philosophy. That's something that I would probably, if I was going to go to school again, I would become a chiropractor because your philosophy resonates with me so much. And the 3 steps are: number 1, identify the interference. And it's usually interferences, it's usually
Hmm.
plural. So once you have identified it, number 2 is to work on removing the interference. That could be, of course, chiropractic adjustments, eating healthy fats, dirty fats, getting sleep. So you work on removing the interference. And the 3rd step is just allow your amazing body to heal. There is an innate intelligence
Hmm.
within us that is the world's greatest healer and physician, that there's no pill, no surgery, no shot, no supplement that could replace the innate intelligence, but we have blocked it. So what we want to do at Keto Camp and what you do with your clinic and your work is to teach people to harness this innate intelligence: intermittent fasting, your thoughts, sleep, ketosis, keto flexing. These are powerful ways, ancient healing strategies that have been around for a very long time. So that is the mission here at Keto Camp, to get it out there to the world.
I love it. I actually, for some reason, I knew that you knew a lot of chiropractors, right? Like Pampas are good friends, etc. And so that's what I looked at Amy at one point, and I was like, well, I said, I know he's tight within the chiropractic profession. I'm kind of thinking he might actually be a chiropractor. And she's like, oh, so like, it's like, I love it when there are people like you talking the chiropractic philosophy, right? Because and especially right now, man, we are seeing, I think we're seeing the fall of modern medicine. Like
Yeah,
people are understanding that healing does come from within. It's not necessarily a shot, pill, or potion, lotion, whatever.
no, you're so
So,
right, Lisa. I mean, if we just look at the last 50 years of what the government has promoted for our health, has
mm,
it worked? No, it's been the opposite of working. And then why would we expect it to work now? Like, why would we expect them to have our best interest? So you're right. A lot of people are understanding that, and they're taking ownership and responsibility to do the research and apply what we're teaching, which is the true way to heal your body.
And to be honest, like, and I'll say, like, as we're recording this now, there's yet another variant coming out, right? So now they're talking about the possibility of more lockdowns. And I literally, at least people now are like, okay, time out. We did this. We tried all of this almost 2 years ago, and we're still in the same situation. So if that didn't work, like, why would I do it now? So thank God people are questioning, right? And again, like you had just said, the last 50 years, like sometimes I'm like, maybe it was calculated. I don't even know. Like, are there like, this is just what they're telling us to do, obviously is not working. And we are the sickest nation on earth. So like,
Yeah, just all you have to do is look at the history. Stay away from saturated fats, eat margarine, eat trans fats.
Yeah, eat sugar.
Eat sugar. The war against cancer, it's a genetic disease. I mean, we could go on and on. Diabetes is a lifelong sentence, but we can manage it, right? Eat this hospital food, right? It's like, just look at the history and you can see the writing is on the wall.
And we give you one drug, and then we're going to give you another drug to cover up the symptoms of the first one.
Correct.
And it's almost at this point, you look at what's happening in this world right now, and all of the other conditions that are being created from everything. I mean, we could go on for a lot of stuff, but I get pretty vocal about it. And sometimes I just have to be really quiet in my practice. Those people aren't listening though. I can guarantee that.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't matter if you have all the research studies in the world and the proof with your patients. If you're living in fear, it'll shut down your critical thinking. And it doesn't matter what you show somebody. If you're in fear, it doesn't matter. And that's the problem. Fear is the real enemy here.
I will say this. This is what I have thought. There is something going on right now. How can I say this? I don't want to be censored. So there's something going on that people are voluntarily taking, right? And there are research articles. Like there was a New England Journal of Medicine article that came out early on. Do you know which one it was, with the pregnant women that were getting a shot?
Yeah.
You see, and like, you probably read that. I read that and said, holy smokes. There's a high risk of miscarriage with this. Like, holy smokes. So, I mean, I literally have had people, friends, whatever, asking me like, what should I do on kids for this? What should I do for this? I've handed them that same article. And like, this speaks exactly with what you said. Fear. Like, I read the article, I looked at the research, I said, holy smokes, this isn't good. Other people read that same article, said, okay, I'm going to have my 12-year-old take it.
Yeah.
So it is like, we've got to realize like what is real, and what is, because again, what's the acronym for fear? There is one out there. False evidence appearing real.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And that's the challenge for our message and our mission is we want to educate people. We have the information that can heal them, but if they're in fear, it's hard to penetrate that.
Yeah. All right. What else do you want to share? This has been great. Thank you for for sharing my philosophy. I love it.
The last thing I'll share is that I love keto. My company's Keto Camp. I have keto books. I've been teaching it for several years, but we don't want to be in ketosis long-term. Both men and women. I know you're a big believer of that. You do keto flexing, carb cycling. I call it keto flexing. We don't want to be dogmatic, and we want to make sure we are using both energy systems, the ketogenic energy system most of the time, but then we're flexing over to the glucose energy system, right? We want to make sure we're using both pathways, not just stuck in one pathway. Because for women, for example, if you're in ketosis long-term, what happens for most women? The thyroid will begin to slow down. You lack the ability to make that T4 to T3 conversion. For men, you'll see lower testosterone, higher sex hormone binding globulin. For women, you'd see lower progesterone. So they're, angrier. Progesterone is that hormone, as you know, helps you feel calm and good. So there's problems that can occur. And there's another problem that 4-HNE, which is a free radical that's produced when you're oxidizing fat and burning fat. You see a slow buildup of 4-HNE. I have several studies in people who do keto long-term. So it's important to cycle in and out, flex in and out, do the work in the beginning, be disciplined, and do what you can to get fat adapted, keto adapted. And then you have earned that badge to flex in and out. You could use Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, events for your feast days, your flex days. We're designed to feast and build up mTOR, anabolic. We're designed to fast and do keto and get autophagy. So it's the balance in both of these pathways that we want to do, not just one heavy pathway. And that's what I would share at the end here.
I love it. Do you have people chase ketones or no? Probably not. I know you're thinking.
No,
I
I
answered
don't.
it for you.
Yeah, you did. In the book, I say, don't chase ketones, chase results, right? Now, we don't,
Exactly.
it doesn't make sense to want higher
No.
ketones, just like you don't want higher glucose, right? So no,
Yeah.
that's not the goal.
And I've seen that like with exogenous ketones where people will walk around,
Yeah.
you've seen it all over on social media. My ketone levels are up at 4. I'm like, great, but time out. Like
Yeah.
you just drank a bunch of ketones.
I know. It isn't, you can't bypass the system. I'm not a big fan. There's time and place to kind of sprinkle in exogenous ketones, but you don't want to rely on them. I'm not a fan of them.
Yeah, not to say that you're in ketosis. Like, no. Yeah, I'll use them for different hacks. But
it's like going to run a marathon and like skipping the marathon and just getting a t-shirt and saying,
saying I did it.
Yeah.
I know. And I think that was what was so funny at the beginning, because I was very involved with that first company that brought them out. Right. And so like people literally would be like, oh, you can pee on a stick and you're in ketosis 30 minutes later. I'm like, well, that's exactly what ketosis means is, like, but the fact is like
not the same thing. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Ben, tell them where they can find you. I know we can find the book on Amazon, but and ketoflex.com. All of your social handles. Let's hear those.
Yeah, I mean, my podcast, which I'd love to bring you on, Lisa, is called the Keto Camp Podcast, and that's on all podcast platforms. So it's an easy transition. I interviewed Amy Horniman, who is our mutual friend, earlier this year. She did an awesome job. And then YouTube, TikTok, just type in Ben Azadi or Keto Camp. We're on every social media platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This was so fun.
I had a great time. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks.